Good morning, everybody. Wanted to give you a little shop update and a tour. Let you know about some problems that I've been having and how I chose to fix them, and maybe it'll help you going forward in the future. Over here is a 1 3/4 horse Model P Nelson Brothers little jumbo engine. I got this engine from a man who had bought it a long time ago and never did anything with it, passed it on to me, and we're going to get her running. We got all the parts for it. Had to order a new gas tank. The other one just was too far gone. And this one is in the queue to be put back together as soon as we can find some time to do it. Got a new head here. Had to send the head off to, well, not a new head, but a refurbished head. Had to send it off to Flywheel Supply. They made me some new valves and put some springs in there for me. And we are ready to go for this engine. We have all the parts. Just got to get her put back together. Here on top of the toolbox is some Model T coils that I have refurbished and got them ready to run on engines. Over here on the workbench, this is my pile of Model T coils to go through this evening. Some of these are going to be for my Model T truck, and some of them are going to be for engines. And hopefully there's enough there to get a couple of them running for each. We'll see tonight when we get going to them. As far as the shop goes, here in my little Napa cabinet is just stuff that we all need to fix our engines up, keep up with. And over in this cabinet, I keep my assorted nuts and bolts and other pieces and parts. Try to keep them organized as much as possible. And this is my little electrical section. Electrical stuff in. Of course, got the grinder and the drill press. My shop smith over there. Mainly use these days for running the wire wheel, and the bandsaw for cutting stuff. This is a interesting little story on this engine here. It's a 2 horsepower Fairbanks Morris spoke flywheel engine that I got from a man who had taken it all apart. This thing was completely apart. The valves were bad, so sent the head off to Flywheel Supply. They were able to put some seats and new valves and springs in it for me. Sent it back, got it going. This engine has had a couple interesting little problems, nothing we can't handle. Over here, this bracket right here, when I got the engine, was broke. As you recall, these engines are famous for having the pot metal brackets that break. So that bracket is a replacement from Hit and Miss Enterprises. That's an aluminum bracket. And when I got it back and got it painted and got it on the engine, I realized that this left-hand bolt right here, which was original to this engine, was too long, and it was hitting the cam lobe under here. So my solution to the problem was to just put another washer under it, which raised the bolt up and allowed the mechanism to spin freely. So now she's loose and able to spin. Another interesting problem I had with this engine was this little pin right here. Goes into this speed control mechanism in here, and after I painted it, got it cleaned up, painted it, and was ready to install it back into the engine here, I realized that it had a lot of play. It had a lot of north and south and east and west play. So I took it back off, got the pin out, and we're going to head up to Ace Hardware today and take that pin and that mechanism with us and see if we can get a new pin fitted in there, which I hope we can do. and get that put back on the engine and go on to the next step with this engine. We'll get it, and it goes back here. And that should complete the linkage to the exhaust control lever arm and the throttle. So the next step is going to be getting the crankshaft off the flywheels and getting it fitted to the engine. But this was a fun little project. It was already apart, like I said before, so it was just as easy to go ahead and paint it and get a new gas tank for it and get her going all brand new. Hopefully my summer project's going to be this engine here. This is a 4 horsepower Call of the West that was a Waterloo contract engine. The only thing I have all the parts for this engine. The only thing I don't have is the fuel tank. I'm going to have to get a reproduction fuel tank to go that sits on this bracket here on the back of the engine. And so hopefully we'll get this engine running and out on the showgrounds. This is the flywheels for the 2-horse Fairbanks. Like I said before, we got to get those off and get the crankshaft fitted to the engine, get her shimmed up, and get everything painted and get this engine going. This workbench is just a bunch of projects and a little bit of free space to be able to move around and put stuff here and there. Also wanted to show you my little Montgomery Wards. It's an 1/16 by 1 inch pump that I picked up the other day. I'm going to use it for pumping water. When I got it, the impeller was full of oil, so I suspect somebody may have used it for pumping oil or some other kind of fluid like that. But we got to get a pulley for it here, and I didn't put a gasket back in it yet because I'm going to wait till I get it put back together. But it was covered in grease and dirt, as these things always are. So I took it all apart, cleaned it, degreased it. I was trying to preserve the original paint as much as I possibly could. And so my plans with this pump is we're going to get it going, get a gasket in it, and hook it up to a hit and miss engine and let her pump some water. Over here was an interesting little project. This is a 1 3/4 horse. I'm sorry, it's a 3/4 horse associated pony engine, and this one I actually picked up at an auction sale. And when I got it home and was messing with it, I realized that it wasn't sucking any fuel. So I took it apart and found the fuel tank full of grease and dirt and what have you, the normal kind of stuff, and the fuel line was clogged. I was able to get part of it clean, but the check valve was just so packed with that stuff that now no matter how much I tried, I couldn't get it cleaned. So called my friends at Flywheel Supply, and they said that a Maytag check valve would fit in there. So I cut the old check valve off, and when the new Maytag check valve gets here, we'll thread it. We'll thread the line and then thread the Maytag check valve on there, and it should make the fuel system clean and ready to pump some fuel. If you ever get one of these engines or ever looking for one of these engines, remember that down here the gear that runs off the camshaft is some kind of fiber resin gear, and this one happened to be good, no missing teeth. But I've talked to people that have these, and sometimes the teeth break off. So if you're going to get one of these engines or looking at one, make sure you check that gear to make sure there's no missing teeth. My latest acquisition is this engine, which it's not an inverted engine. I've got it inverted because this piston is stuck. This is a Nelson Brothers little jumbo line. This is a 1.5 horsepower Model P. 1.5 horsepower Model P, where the one over there is a 1 3/4 horse Model P. This engine, like I said, was stuck. I didn't want to pull the head off just yet, so I pulled the muffler out, opened the exhaust valve, and filled it full of Aerocoil oil penetrant, and I'm gonna let it sit for a couple of days and see if I get the piston loose. And I also opened the intake valve and filled it up. So I'm gonna let it soak, and hopefully I can get it loose. If it doesn't, the next step's going to be I'll pull the igniter off and see if I get some more penetrant in there and get this thing loose. This is the cart that it was on. The gentleman that made that I got it from. I'm not going to keep this cart. I'll put it on a cart that will match that motor over there, and hopefully get them both running at the same time where I can run the 1 3/4 horsepower and the 1 1/2 horsepower. And that's about it for the shop tour. As you can see, I'm kind of operating out of a half of a 2-car garage, and it gets a little bit of tight sometimes, so we got to get stuff cleaned up, and so I can get in here and work on the next project. Thanks for watching. Hope this helped you.